Hi and welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today on Kicking It with the Kandemiris. I'm Kandemiri, and this is my beloved, my sugar, my sweetie, my thang. This is my wife, Bongeka Kandemiri, and we love God. We're passionate about marriages. We're passionate about having conversations about making marriages work. And one thing I know is even if you're in ministry, even if you are called by God, making marriage work means work. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes management to make marriages work. So we've been away for a bit. We apologize for that. It's very hard for us to get to sit together. We can make content separately. But it's very hard for us to sit together and do it because, kids, work, whatever, the household, etc. So we will be doing our best to improve on that. And also, we've made a slight change as well, a slight tweak to our presentation, which is that we will no longer be preparing talks ahead of time. We found that our unrehearsed, unplanned talks are a lot more exciting. They're a lot more exciting. So we wish you could be part of our bathroom conversations or bedroom conversations when we're just actually talking about stuff as well. But we're going to actually do our best to reserve those conversations for on camera so that they are also very authentic and they are not sort of like planned, kind of thing. So I'm gonna give it out to my wife, and I want us to pick a random conversation, something we've talked about, or something you've been thinking about that we can actually explore and break down together.
Okay. Well, there's a recent conversation. Okay, well, there was a recent conversation that we had. The most recent one was from a conversation that we saw on Reddit. And this is not the first time. Like, this topic is not the first time we've seen it. We've seen it on Instagram. We've seen it on TikTok. So many videos where men are just frustrated of wives who do not want to engage in sexual intercourse with them. And the rebuttal from the women is always, well, it's a privilege, it's not a right, or a woman doesn't really feel like they have an obligation towards their husband for sex. It's something that does not matter. It is something that they do not think about. Obviously, I mean, there is a lot. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do for women. There's so many other things in our minds that are not sex. But for you guys, what I've learned now, even just through conversations with my husband and getting to understand each other from reading books, is that sex for men is like a love language. It's actually like a love language. And if you're not doing that, they don't feel that closeness to you. But anyway, just outside of that, the whole conversation was really around what is it that is causing this horrible dynamic between men and women, where this one doesn't want to have sex and this one is now tired, even tired of asking what is going wrong, and is it a problem that has always been there through generations, or is it a socialization thing? Is it a biology thing? Is it the food? Those are the kind of questions.
We were asking. I was asking her those questions because it's a lot. Like it's deep. It's deep now, so much that I think 6 in every 10 marriages are struggling with this. There's a mismatch between libido. There's a mismatch between desire. There is general frustration across the board, and so forth and so forth. And apart from money, which is one of the biggest reasons people fight, sex is now actually one of the top or leading problems there, but mostly because of lack of desire on the woman's part. Now, my question is, why? Why is this happening? Has it always been like this? Fine. A lot of people want to say no, because back in the day, women didn't have rights and stuff like that. It was obligatory, etc. But I don't know, and I don't think that's verified either. It's just people arguing for the sake of arguing. But I think it's important that information be presented from a factual perspective. But this is becoming more prevalent. So the question is, are we not eating right? Is it the culture? Is it what we are believing now? Is it what we're eating? Because clearly these women are not malicious. It's not like they're getting out of their way to hurt their partner, right? They're not I don't think any one of these people say, I need to find a way to hurt this guy today. These are people who genuinely, biologically are completely disconnected from the realm of sex, which is a massive issue in marriage. Nobody gets married to not have sex, you know. And so the question then becomes, what is it? Is it a chemical thing? Is it, you know, and, you know, I like your answer. I want you to share your answer with everybody, because I'm starting to think, yes, it does need investigation. But I think your answer could be the insight into that. Talk to us.
Wait, but that was about the nurturing thing.
No. That was later.
Thing?
No, I'm talking about your answer was actually it's everything. You said
yeah.
You said to me
it is everything. It is socialization. It is biology. It is a confluence of emotional, relational things
Issues,
that are also going on.
Food and biology,
yes,
chemistry.
Like for example, most women do not feel cared for some reason, and you can't discount that if someone says they feel that.
Okay.
Okay.
No. Here, I want to note.
Most
I know my
women,
phone
yeah.
is-
most women feel uncared for, unheard, right? And I believe also that there's a feeling of, I don't know how to say this without sounding some type of way, but anyway.
Without sounding PC.
No,
Okay.
not PC.
Woke.
Yeah, kind of PC.
Okay. All right.
I don't know. Okay, I don't know. But anyway, women feel like, right? I lost my thought. Oh my God, I lost it.
Yeah, but cared for, hurt. What else?
Unheard. Oh yes, like a lot of responsibility, right? It's not
That you have so much to do.
there is much to do.
And it's on you.
Yes, back in the day, right? Back in the day, you know, you are a stay-at-home mom, so vele your job is the kids and your house and looking after your husband, and he's out there doing whatever, and then he comes home, you are nurturing your family, right? The times allowed for such,
Okay.
right? And I was saying to you that women innately, we are born with a caring, a very caring and a softer outside of socialization. Obviously, when we get socialized, now we are taught, okay, you need to be a little more softer, a little bit, but innately, God gave us a nurturing, very soft kind of spirit, and a spirit that wants to take care of others and make sure everybody is okay, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like now there's so many other stresses. Now you have a job to go to. There's a boss who's shouting at you there at work because you didn't hand in your things on time. You are a senior manager, CEO, whatever you are, and you have a lot of responsibility on yourself. Now you have to go home. On top of that, can you imagine how stimulating that environment is, first of all? And now you haven't had time to, rest yourself, cool yourself,
is this something a maid could fix for certain households?
They could.
Okay, so it's part of that. Because even if there is a maid, you still have to bear the mental
You
load
still have your
of
job.
that.
I mean, you still have your job.
Yeah, you still want to
obviously.
get home and
But
see your kids clean and
it's- yes.
the house tidy and stuff, and to manage that person as well.
But it's less of a load on you. And this is what I always say to personally, and if we really do look at this without being all feministy and being all, oh no, but what are we supposed to do? Things like that, guys. At the end of the day, God gave us roles. When he made us, he knew what he was doing, right? He knew what role you were supposed to fulfill, right? And with all these rights and with all these things, and before somebody says, oh, so you want us to go back in the 50s? No, that's not what I'm saying. We are bringing up a conversation which is relevant. Sometimes when you don't know what your role is, then you will get lost.
Because
You will
look,
be lost.
if you go back to the biblical model,
Yeah.
which is Adam and Eve, even to the word that God spoke to both of them, he says, Adam, you will eat from the sweat of your brow.
Yeah.
To a great extent, that actually is indicative of the perspective that supply was supposed to come out of the man, right? That's his physical supply. And so we are talking about whether shelter or food or sustenance, it was supposed to come out of the man. And then the woman's responsibility, even in that allocation, was childbirth, which is nurturing and so forth and so forth. It's legacy. It's the protection and the enhancement of legacy. So I will take absolutely that point. I have a very counter cultural ideas concerning women and so forth, right? When we talk about women and men in roles. But the question I then escalate to is one I've asked you before. So what do women want to do? What do you want to do? Because the problem is, not all of us subscribe to biblical
Yes, yeah,
values.
not everybody does.
We
yeah.
don't all subscribe to cultural values. We don't entirely subscribe to modern values. We subscribe to a little bit of everything, right? So you say women who are saying, like you, that TikTok you were watching earlier, she says, me cooking for my family is not a right, it's a privilege. Okay, so the food you make is a privilege. The sex you give is a privilege, right? It's not a right. What then is a right? What is the right of a man in a marriage? In the same sense, what is the right of a woman in a marriage? These conversations become problematic because ultimately nobody subscribes completely to a model, right? We are Christians, but our view of how our culture works is bits and pieces from, oh, that influencer said this. Oh, that pastor said this. And then you take this little stuff, and then what we
Try
have...
to mash it all together.
Exactly. I always say to people, Paul says to the Galatians, you foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? Because to him, they were comprising of a group of people that are a mash-up of values and beliefs. He's saying, I taught you this, and yet you are starting to subscribe to other things that are not what I taught you. So we have a mess in the marriage space because everything is a subscription of different places. There's no proper discipleship in terms of this is what we believe as a couple. Because again, if I believed that my body is yours and yours is mine, I cherish it.
Yeah.
I look after it. I nurture it. I understand. If you say, babe, not tonight, I'm not in a great space, I can respect that.
Yes.
And at the same time, even when you are not feeling like it, you'd understand that, again, this is me offering myself to my husband. And me recognizing that I'm offering myself to my wife. Whether it is one way or another, there is a certain level of understanding and honor for that person's body as yours. It's you are me, I'm you. But now without that, with that mashup that we currently have, then we have someone saying, nothing here is your right. So what is a woman's role in a marriage? And I think that ultimately then, that's frightening.
Yeah.
That's frightening because I think maybe to a great extent, the biggest problem now isn't even the biology. I do think we need to investigate chemicals and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not usually very, what's the word?
Scientific.
Not scientific. What's the word? I don't like following these, theories. What do you call them? Something theories? Conspiracies. Okay, I'm not a huge conspiracy theorist. To some extent, there are certain things I hear and I believe, but at the same time, I'm not like hardcore in terms of conspiracy theories.
So you like researching?
I do think research has a place in the world, but I do think there is something in the water. There's something in the water. There's something in the food. There's something in the culture, because the culture has become twisted and funny. I do think that there are certain things that are happening to us that are affecting the human biology in such a way, because I've never seen such a thing of women be so completely disconnected from sexuality at all. Is this normal?
I think it's human nature to another extent. Because, okay, now I'm going to spiritualize it.
Hit me.
I'm going to have to spiritualize
Hit me, babe.
it.
Let's do it.
Right. So, we all know that anything that happens, right, in this world, we know that this world belongs to the enemy. We all know it. And we're not going to act a fool to that. But one thing the enemy tries to do is always to rebel against God. So some of these things, when they come up, right, such as women's rights, wada, and it's not to say women shouldn't have rights, right? It's so hard to have these conversations without having to also...
Don't defend it.
Also
don't even defend it. No disclaimers. I don't think we need to offer disclaimers. I think that, I'm learning, even as we are doing what we are doing with Ecclesia, with this channel, and with Yoked, that the problem, again, starts from the fact that we are talking to people that are already burdened by the culture. The people who need it will get it.
Yeah.
And I think because TikTok is so much marriage information,
Lots of information.
you can just fall prey to anything. So I don't think we need to defend the viewpoint or put a disclaimer. I think speak your heart.
Let me speak.
Yeah. Speak, woman of God. Speak, woman of God. Let's hear.
Okay, so yes, the enemy has always tried to rebel against God and what God has put and instituted in the world in his way, right? So anyway, at any time when things come up, such as whether it's women's rights, whether it's, all these new terms that start coming up, it's all good intention. I understand the intention behind it. I understand the intention behind feminism. We want to be equal. We don't want to be discriminated against when we say we want to do certain jobs. We don't want to be discriminated against when we say we want to be out there and working and whatnot. And that's good, right? That's not a bad thing. But somehow it gets perverted into something else and it morphs into something completely different and what it was not supposed to be.
Demonic agenda.
Yes. And then it causes chaos.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Which is what we have now.
Because God does not author confusion.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so and there's nothing wrong with saying allow women to work.
Absolutely not.
Right? There's nothing wrong with saying treat her fairly. Even in the Bible, it was wrong to mistreat your wife.
Your wife, yeah.
But I think that it escalates when it's the only way for me to express freedom is for me to be naked.
Yeah. I hate that thing.
The only way for me to be recognized is for me
to do something extreme and
excessive.
out of the box, and
yes.
it becomes too much.
Exactly.
To a point where it's like, okay, so who are you? You know, because I'm always looking at this thing like, no, women have their rights to their bodies and they can do what they want. They can. Okay, for example, like with the Kiki Palmer situation, right? Which I don't want to go into too much in depth because I'm still going to talk about it in my channel. Yes, but the general consensus that I got from those comments is that women have the right to do whatever they want and not require accountability, right? And not need to be accountable to anyone or anything because you are a bad bee and you can do whatever you want. But still somebody must love you and take you as you are. And that's a wrong attitude to have.
Of course. And again, double standard. If a man does exactly the same thing, it's like, what is wrong with you? Why would you do such a thing? There's obviously a terrible double standard, but I think the real problem is extremism.
Yeah,
we go too far.
Yeah.
There's a place where it's okay, and I think the rule is anything in excess is dangerous.
Everything is
in moderation. Submission, right? Submit. Leadership, authority. It must be managed in moderation. As soon as anything, it doesn't matter how good it was. Comes in excess, we've got a problem. But our culture has become so perverted. I think the enemy just found this incredible tool called culture. And through it, he has just shaped minds into being extremely, extremely perverted. And somehow...
And it looks good.
It does. And it sounds like
it makes sense. Yeah. It makes sense. I can agree with that.
If you listen to someone giving terrible marriage advice, but it's so well packaged, and this is gonna mess you up. This is not gonna be good for your marriage. But the problem is, you go there in the comments and you see, oh wow, we're definitely gonna try this. And people are in trouble.
There are too many voices.
We are definitely in trouble. And so, how many couples have marriage platforms?
A lot. And everyone has their own thing going on and whatnot, which is why I like the fact that like with Christian couples, like what it's based on. If you're not gonna go outside that. I mean, obviously somebody's gonna come and pervert something here and there and twist the words and whatever. But I think an authority is important.
Yeah.
It is important to have an authority on relationships. Now, obviously, relationships are not a blanket thing. The same thing won't work for everybody. But there's always a principle and a foundation. As long as you have a foundation and a principle, I really believe it can work.
And I don't want to say authority because I think that word is also quite dangerous. Because... Look, you have people like Steve Harvey, and no shade, right? People like Steve Harvey who are now authorities in marriage. who divorced multiple times.
Yeah.
So many issues and so
And
much smoke and scandals around that. But it's all about packaging now. People are building authority based on good branding.
Yes.
And I think ultimately it must come down to good discipleship. Good discipleship. Because discipleship's purpose is then to introduce you to the right people. And we build relationally by knowing each other to the point where anybody that knows me and you know we have a good marriage. Anybody that is close enough to actually be part of our house and stuff gets to understand that these people have a good marriage. We don't necessarily have amazing pictures out in socials. Maybe we should do photos. But my point is, and like all marriages that do have issues and conversations and struggles and whatnot, the bottom line is we have got a great marriage.
Yeah.
And through that, a godly marriage. And we have to audit even our marriage to say, are we in right standing with each other or in right standing with God? But then when we are creating content on a platform, and that's not to say, oh, we're amazing, everybody else is messed up. We're simply saying discipleship has to work with proven authority. Proven authority. Who in your life is an example of a good marriage?
Of a good marriage.
And that's not to say these people have to have been married for years, because I know people that have been married for decades but unhappy. And I know people as well that are busy posting amazing photos, holidays, yet they're not even together.
Talking to each other.
They're not talking to each other. But ultimately, we have that issue of how do we authentically begin to build good marriages if our sources are bad? If we are learning out of the culture instead of learning out of the word. If we're not actually sitting down to question each other and say, hey, how are we pleasing God with our marriage? And are we honoring God with our marriage? How much of my ego is now core to my marriage instead of instead of God? You know, we had the talk.
It's a nice conversation to have if you are Christian and you go after those values, obviously. But like somebody who doesn't or who isn't, where do they go?
But that's your authority, though. I mean, look, again, if it's not culture, then it has to be Christianity. If it's not Christianity, it's whatever you believe in. But ultimately, you have to subscribe to it completely. My point is, you can't be part-time Christian, part-time, you know, and then part-time social media influencers. You have to have one thing that you believe in and not be selective. I think the problem is Christianity is a buffet. It's not an entire world of existence. When Paul talks about it, he explains it as the law of the Spirit. And so if I'm under a certain country, there's laws that govern how I live in that country, and they determine what I do in that country. And so when I'm as a Christian, I'm under that law. It's so clear. It's set. We look at Christianity as a buffet. So when it comes to marriage, I want to submit, but you have to prove yourself first. As my husband, you have to prove yourself that you're a king. So I can be your queen. And so my submission is conditional on your performance. That doesn't work.
But then how does it work?
It's unconditional. Love is unconditional. Because that's how
So
God
what,
you
submit to a person as soon as you meet them? As soon as you decide.
As soon as you say I do, yes.
I do,
no, you don't.
or like.
Absolutely. As soon as you marry that person, you submit to them. There's no.
So when you're dating someone, what happens?
No, of course you can't submit to somebody while you're dating them. I think that the idea is this: at the moment by which I have submitted my life to you through covenant, at that point we submit to each other. Now Paul uses in different places in scripture. At one point he says wives submit to your husbands. At another point he says submit to each other. And so there is a process of dual accountability, dual responsibility, dual check-in, dual, all of that. So we have to get to a point where our system teaches us to hold each other accountable, teaches us to submit to each other, teaches us to build each other. Now, I'm not denying the responsibility of a man to a home and the submission of his wife to her husband. I'm not denying that. What I'm simply saying is, to a certain extent, even shareholders are accountable to the business in the same way as the board members are accountable to shareholders. It doesn't necessarily change the dynamic. You can still run a family. I'm responsible for my children. They submit to me as their father, but in a certain sense and in a certain way, I submit to them. My life is modeled around being a blessing to them and serving them. And so, in the same sense, even with us, I serve you, you serve me, right? So,
Yeah, you do.
So the whole idea then is, I think we have to revisit conversations of who are we to each other? What do we do for each other in our homes? And I think that has to be, what is the right biblical view of how marriages work? You know, before, oh, I don't want to work for him and stuff like that. Because I asked that question. So if you don't want to cook, who should? If you don't want to cook if you find it as a burden to serve your own kids, and you are a mom in a home, and you mentioned something that I would love for you to share before we close this session. But you talked a bit about how the nature of people has changed. Earlier, when we were driving out, in the car, you were talking about this, and you were talking about how the heart of people has changed. Mothers are no longer mothers. Something is wrong.
Oh, no, you said that.
Yeah.
You said mothers are
Yeah,
not
but
mothers.
I
mean,
changed.
if a mother can, leave their child for
Yeah.
days and go to a party and be okay with that,
And they die.
and the child dies, there's
6
a problem.
days. 6 days was
It's a long
brutal.
time.
You know, 6
Yeah.
days is brutal. But
There's a problem. And I was saying that God gave us innately, like I was saying, a nurturing spirit. All the tools we need to be caregivers and mothers, He gave. But over and above that, we always need to consider. I'm sorry, I'm a psychologist / sociologist, so I always have to bring that stuff in, because I love behavioral sciences, and behavioral sciences matter in explaining human behavior. Anyway, nonetheless. So, you may have a certain nature innately. Children are kind, right? They are kind. You don't even have to
Generally,
ask.
yes.
You don't even have to ask them. But they learn to become aggressive. They learn to, and even if they are aggressive, maybe when they are small, you teach them how to simmer down, how to manage their emotions. So there are certain things that, yes, we are innately born with. But as we grow up, as we go to school, as we watch TV, as we interact with friends, as we go into all these spaces and spheres, we pick up certain things, and we learn certain behaviors over time through experience that now shape the kind of people that we become later on.
Okay.
So even the Bible says that, when we backslide, that's not the word that it uses, but when we backslide, it's like you do something over and over again until your conscience is seared.
Yeah.
Like you no longer feel anything
don't
now.
feel
When you
guilt.
do it, there's no more guilt. So if you learn long enough that if you can unlearn being loving, right? And if you are being taught to think about yourself only at all times, you have the right to do whatever you want. You have the right to don't think about anybody else. Everybody else will come second. You come first.
You're first,
right?
yeah.
You come
You
first.
get your
Whatever
priority.
you are the priority. Whatever you feel at the time, yes, go for that. We don't, in our society, we no longer look at things as, okay, maybe we need to evaluate this behavior a little bit, because that's abnormal. It's no longer, it's whatever you think it is, that's exactly what it is, and you have the right to that. So over time, those experiences, what you hear, those things that we hear, oh no, you can be a bad bee, you can have 500 businesses, you don't need no man, you don't have to have children. Children are a waste of time. They are gonna take your money. They are going to irritate you.
Travel the world.
Travel your world. See whatever you want to see.
Don't let anybody tell you what to
don't
do.
let
You
anybody-
are right.
Yes.
All that
you
time.
are right all the time. You don't need to be accountable. Of course.
But then, doesn't this then become us challenging the authority of God?
It is. That's why
In
I
the
was saying.
first place.
That is what I was saying when I was saying this world belongs to the enemy. And he teaches us the kind of things that go against what God meant in the first place.
Yes, which is largely then a Luciferian agenda.
Absolutely.
To teach us that we are greater.
Yes.
That the law of God does not matter.
Matter.
So we are right back to Genesis anyway, where Eve and Adam are dealing with all these issues. And to her, did he really say that?
Yeah.
He's just saying that to keep you away from the good stuff.
Yeah.
There's a good stuff that you already have. You have this good stuff, but he doesn't want you to know it. So,
And then we go into that culture of blaming each other. Yeah, but you shouldn't have done that.
actually, this is incredibly a replay of exactly the same
Genesis,
thing. Because
absolutely.
Adam did not look at his faults and his failure. He blamed his wife. His wife says, this guy. And so we have now that same thing where, she's not giving me sex.
Yeah.
And I'm cheating. I'm out of my marriage.
Yes.
I am not taking my place in leadership in my family. I am destroying my home. I'm destroying my kids. I'm passing on
After my
generational
2000.
trauma. Yes, I'm passing on generational trauma. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And all the while, I blame her for failing to be a good wife, for not doing what she's doing. She's trying to attain this new level of enlightenment that the enemy promised her, because you're gonna know more, you're gonna do more, you're gonna become more, and God is trying to keep you from it, and none of them are connected to God at all in the same season. I think marriages just need a lot of healing.
They do.
They
do, but like the problem is, I don't know if it's I don't know if I should make it a counseling thing, like people should go for counseling. I don't know if people have been going for counseling or not when their marriages fail, but most people don't want to. Because one thing we've even realized with counseling is that nobody ever wants to take accountability for any of their stuff.
Yeah.
Especially when they come to counseling. People just want to go to someone and hear, your spouse is right.
You
are wrong. You need to fix your actions. And when we get to a place where we are able to say, look within ourselves, like I like to think that I'm a very self-aware person, right? So at any time when you bring something up to me, I have to go and reflect within myself and see if there's any places where I have actually, done wrong or messed up, and where I can fix it. If I can fix it, if there is a place where I can defend myself, I do. But then we need to work a way forward. Most times people just want to bring up a problem like, well, it's because of this A, B, and C. Okay, so how are you gonna fix it? Well,
no, you don't need to.
I
if you're perfect, there's nothing to fix, right?
Absolutely.
So,
but that's also another trick, right? Of the enemy is thinking that everybody else has done me wrong, and I am right. In my position where I'm at, I am right, and I have no accountability towards anybody or anything else.
But this is on both genders. This is important.
This is both
because,
sides.
Again,
for sure.
you genuinely have a whole horde of men that think I'm perfect. My wife has
Yes,
issues,
yes.
and women that think I'm perfect. My husband has issues, and nobody ever comes to a point where it has to be put down. I think that's why a few days ago I shared a video on TikTok, and I was saying sanctification is needed for all of us. What God needs is godly people in marriages so that they can build a godly marriage. If I cannot submit to the authority of God, it's hard for me to work out a marriage because my ego will speak louder than my submission. And I think we are literally at a point where, for a lot of us, male and female, our ego is greater. You are God. And so you want everybody to pay homage, to revere you, to honor you. You can never be wrong because you are still God. And if there was one person above you, and that is God, and he's above you, it could change your heart through that sanctification process of I'm dying to myself. Wait a minute, that was my ego talking. And let me come back to my wife and say, babe, I'm sorry. My ego spoke much louder than anything else. I'm sorry. Let's reconnect. What can we do? How can we build this? How can I serve you? How can you serve me? And that conversation then allows us to submit to the authority of God and build then godly marriages. I think you cannot build godly marriages unless if you have godly people.
Yes, absolutely. You're always going to get it wrong.
Yeah, so today we are just having this conversation about all these issues that I think we tackled a little bit of diverse topics today. And everything from, sex expectations, job requirements in a marriage. What exactly am I supposed to do? But really, these are conversations coming out of the culture. The culture is just a complex thing. This thing that we have is very complex. But I think the most important lesson is to rely on the Spirit of God. To say, in order for us to build godly marriages, we need godly people. You cannot make a cake if you're not using cake ingredients.
Yeah.
You know, and so if you bring a bunch of fruits and vegetables, you're not gonna make a cake, you're gonna make something else. And so if we are trying to become like God, even in our marriages, then we need people who are ready, who have the nature of Christ in them. Let's stop taking advice from the world. Let's stop taking advice from celebrities. Let's stop taking advice from ungodly places, but rather to say, how do we follow the model that Christ has set for us, that God has set for us, in order for us to build lasting, working marriages? I hope today has been good for you and encouraging for you. I hope it's been aligning you as well. And as we said, we're going to promise to post more,
We'll
to
try.
have all these talks a little bit more, and make as much content as we can around this. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. There's a lot of conversations we've been having: spiritual warfare, the kind of prayers we do in our marriage with each other, you know, and so forth and so forth. So we're going to have just a lot of questions, but we encourage you also to write questions, send us questions, so we can actually sit and engage on them together as you watch, and on demand, right? Is that on demand? On the spot? What is it? All right, guys. God bless you.